Welcome to The Authentic Path, where we explore the intersection of leadership, performance science, and ancient wisdom. I'm your host, Dr. Vanessa Calderon. I'm a Harvard-trained physician and healer with over 20 years of leadership and business development experience. I blend science and ancestral wisdom with proven strategies to help you get the results you desire in work and in life without losing yourself along the way. Let's get started. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. Here we are on The Authentic Path, and I'm so excited to have you here. I have a very different and very exciting episode for you. I am diving into the energy of this Lunar New Year. So many of you have maybe heard or seen floating around social media that 2026 is the year of the horse, but not just any horse. It's the year of the fire horse. And so I am really excited because it just so happens that the Lunar New Year starts on February 17th, which is this week. And so I thought I would switch it up and bring you an episode that was really, really timely to support you in really accessing all the energy that this Lunar New Year is bringing us to support you in creating the life that you want. And the reason why I thought it was so good is because I want you to think about this podcast as sort of your cheat sheet for business, for life, for leadership. It's a place where you can come when you are looking to create more joy in your life, when you want to have success and you want it to feel easier, when you want to be in your flow state, and when you want to grow into the next version of yourself without burning out in the process. This episode is definitely for you if any of that sort of resonates with you, if you are a mission-driven leader, an entrepreneur, and someone who deeply cares about living a life of purpose. So let's jump in. And I mentioned that this year is the year of the horse, and horse energy is bold and it's free and it's expansive. Horse energy is not energy that sort of tiptoes around on eggshells. So we're going to dive into the year of the horse and what it means for you and how to release any old patterns that do not serve you as you evolve into this next version of you this year. Okay, so let's talk about what it symbolizes. So the Chinese zodiac repeats itself every 12 years. Okay, so we'll have another year of the horse in 12 years. However, the Chinese zodiac also adds an element. So every animal is paired with an element. And in the Chinese zodiac, there are 5 elements. There's wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. So this year, it just so happens to be that the year of the horse is paired with the element of fire. So it's the fire horse. And that pairing will not repeat again for another 60 years, which is pretty cool. So when you think about horse energy, I want you to think about a horse running free, like a wild horse running free in the wild. My daughter used to watch this show called Spirit, and Spirit was the name of a wild horse. And there was a young gal who believed Spirit was her sort of spirit animal, but she never wanted to domesticate Spirit, so Spirit would get to run free. It was so beautiful. Anyway, think about that when I think about horses running free. The horse energy is freedom. It's forward momentum. It's kind of like this vitality, independent energy. So it will really reward courageous action. That is the year of the horse. Now let's pair the year of the horse with fire. And what does that mean? So fire energy, what fire does is it amplifies the speed, the visibility, independence, courage, bold action. Because the horse, if you think about it, already carries really strong activation energy or yang energy. So when you think about the masculine, feminine, or the yin and the yang, the horse energy carries very deep yang energy, which is activating, dynamic, forward-moving energy. Now with fire amplifies the risk-taking, the emotional intensity, the presence, and the visibility. So this year is not a year to sort of be quiet, and it's not going to by any means be subtle. It's going to be a year that rewards courage and decisiveness. It's going to be a year where you get to accelerate, like the energy is going to support us in accelerating the things that are already in motion. So if you have an idea, if you have something you want to create and you start to take the action to create it, the energy around you is going to support you in creating that and bringing that into reality. So that's something that's really, really, really important. Here's the thing though, and the reason why this episode is not just about horse energy, because in order for you to effectively step into this fire horse energy effectively, you cannot do that if you are still clinging to old patterns that are not serving you. So in 2025 was the year of the snake. And the year of the snake represented completion or closure because 2025, 2 plus 2 plus 5 also equals 9. 9 equals completion in numerology or closure. But the year of the snake always represents transformation or shedding. Because if you think about the snake in the wild biologically, when a snake starts to grow, it will shed its skin that it can no longer fit in. It'll outgrow its skin and it will shed it as it grows. So the skin that once protected it can become very restrictive. And when that happens, the snake biologically sheds it. So 2025 for many people was a year of transformation and of shedding and of releasing old identities that it was no longer in service to. And I know for a lot of my clients and my colleagues, that was something that was very palpable. So if you experienced a pretty uncomfortable year last year in 2025, it was probably growth. It was probably transformation, because growth and transformation isn't very comfortable. In fact, I have a friend who says, that must be why there's an ow in growth, because it's pretty uncomfortable when you're growing. So neuroscience tells us, and you guys have all heard this, that neurons that fire together wire together. And because of that, when you think about patterns and releasing old patterns, patterns are created through repetition. Neurons that fire together will wire together. So the more and more that we repeat old ways of being, old patterning, the stronger that pattern gets. So when you think about last year, energetically speaking, last year was about noticing that wiring. And for many, it was also about shedding that wiring. But not everybody shedded all the wiring they needed to shed. And by the way, it's not like you shed. It's not like 2025 comes, you shed and you're complete. You never have to shed old wiring again. Nope. Every time you grow out of the energy that you're holding, every time you expand, you get to release things that are no longer serving you. So I just want to make sure I name that, because there's no such thing as you grow once, like 2025 came and went and now you're done growing. Absolutely not. You will grow forever if you choose to, if you want to grow forever. So let's talk about the old patterns, because for those of you that did shed some patterns, I want to celebrate you. And for those of you that still have more patterns to shed, beautiful. Let's do it together, because I'm always shedding. So old patterns can be things like, how do they show up for you? They can be things that show up like thoughts. They can show up like feelings, or they can show up like results that you don't like. So what are some thoughts? Thoughts like, I don't have enough time. I'm always like, I can feel like the feeling of urgency, or like I always have to be working, always have to be pushing really, really hard. It can show up like scarcity or lack. I never have enough. Either I never have enough time or I never have enough money. By the way, that's the same energy of lack or scarcity. I worked with somebody, I remember I had this client who was like, she was making good money and she felt pretty good financially, but she was rushing everywhere she went. And she was raised in a house where she's told me that her story was they never had enough money. And it was so interesting because that pattern of lack or scarcity, she was just translating it now to scarcity of time or lack of time. Never have enough, never have enough. And when we highlighted that for her, when I said, isn't that interesting that you notice that you never have enough time? It was a big light bulb for her. And that awareness, having that awareness, that's when she was finally able to transform or release that pattern. Because awareness will always precede transformation. So you cannot shed a pattern until you are aware that it's a pattern. Because when you are not aware that it's a pattern, what you do is you just believe that that's who you are. It becomes your identity. And that's so important. And that feels raw for me right now, because I know the patterns that I have shed in the past. And when I notice them, you have to first notice them, and then you have to accept that it's a pattern. You have to accept that it's not who you are. You have to accept that it's something that it's okay. It's safe to release, that there's something on the other side, that there's a reason why it's time to let that go. And the reason why we cling to these old patterns, as you all probably know if you've been listening to my podcast for a long time, is because those patterns are known and those patterns feel safe. And the human brain wants to hold on to things that are known and safe, because things that are unknown are scary. Unknown can mean danger. And just from, 60,000 years of biological wiring from our brain keeping us alive and keeping us safe, It's really hard to release things that feel known to us. It's easier for us to hold on to things that are not giving us the results we want in life than to release that and step into the unknown. But for all of you listening, for us that want to continue to grow and expand and become new versions of ourselves, that requires growth and it requires transformation and it requires releasing things that are not in service to us. Okay, so how do you know a pattern is ready to be released? So, one, you're aware of it. So, how are you aware of it? It could be you hear yourself saying the same thing over and over again. Like, I'm so sick of feeling guilty all the time. I always feel guilty when X happens, and I don't want to feel like that. Or I was at a leadership conference this past week, and I kept hearing people say the same thing. Oh, it's because I'm a people pleaser. So they have awareness that they're a people pleaser, but they also believe that that's just who they are. Their identity is tied to that. So in my coaching with them, I would say, isn't that interesting? What would it be like if you no longer identified as that? Like, how would that feel to you? What would that be like? And it's so uncomfortable because folks that identify as people pleasers, they don't necessarily like the feelings of guilt or restriction or like all of that comes with it, but they don't know that it's possible to release it. And so if you're listening, I want you to know any current identity that you're holding, any pattern that you're holding, it can be released. There is no such thing as a fixed identity. There's been so many research studies to show that we can create a growth mindset. Our brain likes growth mindsets. We can have a growth mindset. That's what the science of neuroplasticity teaches us, that our brains will shift, they will shape, they will mold, that we can always continually adapt our identity to create the versions of ourselves that we want to be. So we don't have to stay tied to old identities. We don't have to hold on to identities of people pleasing or someone that just never sets boundaries or someone who's so afraid to have difficult conversations. I'm just not good at difficult conversations. Or someone that's always rushing to get to wherever they're going, or that success always has to be hard, or the only way to be successful is to work really hard. Those are all old patterns, old thoughts, old identities that is okay to release. It's okay to let that go to create the version of you that you want to create. Okay, so number one, awareness precedes transformation. So we have to know that the pattern exists. Number two, we have to accept the pattern as a pattern. We have to accept it as a pattern, and we have to be okay saying that it is not our identity. Just because it was something that I did for a long time, it doesn't mean that's who I am. And that's okay. And then we do the work of releasing it. I want to give you an example for me. So in 2025, I would have this recurring dream. And this was like sort of towards the end of 2025. I would have this recurring dream. And the dream was that I was always running late to the airport. And it was wild. In every one of my dreams, I would have to do all these crazy things to make it to the airport. I'd have to rent cars, or I'd have to like drive a police car, or I'd have to like get somebody's truck, and I'd have to do all these crazy things to make it to the airport on time. And in my dream, I never missed the flight, but I was always running late. Like, oh my God, it was so stressful. I was always running late to the airport. So I sat, and I have a friend who has a PhD in dream psychology. He's a psychologist, a psychotherapist. So I sat with my friend and I talked about my dream. I'm like, this is bananas. I keep having the same dream over and over again. And I've never missed a flight in my life. So what is this coming from? And here is what I've learned that was just like speaking to shedding identities in 2025. So what he said to me is the airport, like running to the airport, doesn't necessarily symbolize you taking a trip or traveling. What the airport symbolizes is a life transition. It's sort of this threshold moment where it's time for you to make a big shift in life. Like you feel a big growth opportunity coming. You're evolving into something else. Some sort of like new opportunity is calling you. And it's time to make that shift. So the airport represents this trajectory or this next chapter. And those things, flights will depart on their schedule. And for me, the dream that I was always like doing all of these things and had to like work really hard to get there represented for me that I had to be ready, that I had to work really hard, that there was no room for error. Like, am I going to be on time to this next transition in my life? And apparently, I also came to learn that that is not an uncommon dream for really high functioning, high achieving people. That a lot of folks have similar dreams like that, where they're driving. One of my friends was telling me they were driving a truck, and then all of a sudden they became too big for the truck in the dream. It's like, okay, he's outgrowing this kind of trajectory he's on. And for me, this flight is like, it's time for me to really lean in. And what I've learned was what I got to release was the fear that I was not ready for this next chapter. The fear that I couldn't trust myself to step into this new evolution of myself with success, that I had to like still do a bunch of stuff, work really hard, do all these things to do it, as opposed to just say, hey, no, it's safe to trust myself. I can do it. I'm ready. That's what it meant for me. What was always bizarre is when I told my friend about this stream, I was like, yeah, and I'm always like running really late and now I have to do all these things. And then he listens. And then at the end, he's like, huh, interesting. And by the way, do you make the flight or do you miss the flight? And it was so funny because I never even brought that up. I was like, no, I never missed the flight in the dream. It's just that it's all this work to get there. And that's when he was like, uh-huh. That means that deep inside, you know that you're ready. You know that when you arrive, you'll be ready to go. You don't actually fail. You always make the flight. So the dream isn't predicting some catastrophe. It's actually confirming that you're ready to go, that you're ready for this next evolution. Whew, that was big for me. So it was funny too, because I knew 2025 was a big growth year for me. And I knew that that was happening kind of in the background, but I had never put those things together until, thank you, dream symbology, teaching me that it's time to do that. Okay. So I'm going to come back to all of you now. So just sharing that for you as an example. So for you, what I want you to think about, and here's how I want you to approach releasing patterns that don't serve you. Number one, start to create awareness of patterns that exist in your life that you're ready to release. It could be thoughts, recurring thoughts you have. I'm never going to be on time. I'm never ready. I can't trust myself. It could be recurring feelings that show up. Guilt is a big one for the women that I work with, for the men and women that I work with. Guilt is a huge one. It could be guilt. It could be dismissing the things that bring you joy. It could be this sense of hyper urgency or always having to work hard or doubting yourself. So the way you can be aware of a pattern, again, is a recurring thought you have, feelings that don't feel good, or results that you're getting that you're just not proud of, just the things in your life that you're not proud of. So once you notice that, when you're really ready to release them, I want you to write them down. And if you're open to this, you can even create a small ceremony around the new moon. So the Lunar New Year is February 17th. And something you can do that's really beautiful is you can write down the patterns you're ready to release. I release this pattern to the earth. And I release this pattern to the earth as I step into the new version of me and list the patterns, the thoughts or the feelings. And then you can create a small ceremony and you can bring in the elements around you, earth, air, water, fire. You can write them down. You can go outside and you can just say it out loud, what you're releasing. And you have the paper there, light the paper on fire. And then with the ashes, maybe light it over some small dirt so that you can just let it go into the dirt. So you're using fire, you're using air because of the smoke, and you're using the earth to then take that and essentially compost it. And if you want, you can pour a little bit of water over it to just use all the 4 elements after you're done. Make sure it's safe, obviously. Make sure there's no embers left. Make sure everything gets buried. But that is a ritual. And rituals are really beautiful. Psychologically, rituals increase emotional processing. So there's a lot of studies to show that the reason why rituals matter is because our mind, our brain sees it as closure. It's like an emotional processing tool. There's been a ton of studies to show in behavioral science that rituals help us regulate grief. It's why showing up to the ritual of a funeral matters. It also supports us in creating a new sense of being. For example, couples who have been living together for years and years and years decide to get married. Why go through the ritual of marriage? What happens? So some people will say, well, symbolically, I just wanted to get married. But psychologically, what's happening is it's creating this new sense of certainty for the mind. So rituals are super supportive. That ritual I just described for all of you, it's a new moon ritual where you can release the things that are no longer of service to you. It's really beautiful. And for you, it could be marking of a threshold. I am releasing these old patterns as I step into this new version of me in 2026, in the year of the fire horse. So when you mark a threshold intentionally, like any of these things, what happens to your brain is your nervous system registers it as complete, as okay, that's complete. It's really beautiful. Okay, friends. So we talked about a lot of things today as I dived into the energy of the year of the fire horse. Now, remember, the year of the fire horse isn't about chaos or about like running everywhere, doing a million things. It's about bold action that is aligned with who you are, with your values. It's about forward momentum that is, again, aligned with what you want to create. And it's about trusting yourself that you can move boldly into this next version of yourself without abandoning yourself. That one I'm saying out loud again for me to hear, because that's what I was being called into as I grow into this next version of myself, trusting that I can do it without all the hard work or, the stories of like hyper urgency or pushing really hard or all of those old patterns that I used to have. And it's about honoring your dharma. Your dharma is your soul aligned purpose, what you were here to create in this world. So when you work in alignment with the lunar energy, with the energy that's around you, it just supports you into really expanding into this next version of yourself. So as we step into this new cycle, I want to make sure that you have released the old patterns, the old skin that is not going to serve you. So I want to ask you, what skin are you finally ready to shed? What desires are you ready to honor? And how would you move if you trusted yourself completely? All right, sweet friends, this is the year of the horse, of the fire horse. It's a year to run into this next evolution of yourself, and I'll be right here with you along the way. Happy Lunar New Year, my friends. Let's run towards what's calling us together. And if this episode resonated with you and you feel called to step into this year boldly, and you want support doing that, I want to remind you of my course. It's called Resourced Wealth. It's a healing-centered approach for mission-driven women leaders and entrepreneurs who are ready to steward real wealth, and not just steward real wealth, like not just create more money, but really have a new relationship with money and power. Because the only way for us to continue to move into what we're being called is to do it with resources. We need the resources of time, of money, and of influence, which we name power. We need to be resourced, and we need to have a new relationship with money and power to do that. Our nervous system needs to expand to hold what it is that we're creating, and that's exactly what we do inside of the beautiful container called Resourced Wealth. You can learn more about it on my website, vanessacalderonmd.com/resourced wealth. And there's a link to the program in the show notes. And just for all of you that are listening, we start next week, Friday, February 27th. So there's still time to join us if you're interested. All right, sweet friends, I will speak to you next week. Adios. Hey friends, if this episode resonated, please take a quick second and leave a review, share it with a friend, or post it to your community. It's how we keep helping others who are walking a similar path, and how together we grow the movement of consciousness in business, leadership, and life. Thank you again for being here, and I'll see you next week.